Let's start by having you look at charts 1 through 3. Chart 1 is a chart of the major scales, and it's going to be very important you're familiar with this chart. Ultimately, you want to memorize the spellings of all of your major scales. For this course, we're going to stay in the key of C. Key of C is easy, it's all natural notes. So right now I'm going to give you a little assignment. If you don't already know it, make sure you have memorized that C is 1, D is 2, E is 3, and so on, so you can instantly obtain any scale degree from the key of C and its numeric equivalent. Chart number 2 is a chart of your major scale applied to different chord formulas, and that's how we do this. We take the major scale and then perform any necessary modifications. In the major family, you don't have any modifications. In the minor family, you have flatted thirds and flatted sevenths. In the dominant family, you have flatted sevenths. So you also will see that at the top of the page of chart 2, I have the 9 in parentheses in the 2 column, the 11 in parentheses in the 4 column, and the 13 in parentheses in the 6 column. I've written the chord formulas in a condensed manner, which means if the chord has a 9 in it, I've written a 2 because they're the same note, just an octave apart. And it really doesn't matter because you need to know it's the same note, and when you voice it, you may not end up putting it an octave higher. Okay, so that's chart number 2, and ultimately you want to have those formulas memorized. But this is all reference material. This is a big, heady course, so you have to work your way through it slowly. Finally, chart number 3 is a chart of chromatic enharmonics, which simply means all 12 tones of the chromatic scale can be viewed with different labels. The 1 is the root. The sharp 1 is the same as a flat 2, same as a flat 9, and so on. So it's important you have those memorized so you don't get confused. If we have a chord that has a flat 5, it's the same thing as a sharp 4. Or sharp 11, depending upon what the chord is. So those are charts 1 through 3. That takes care of that. Now the other component here is that you have all these diagrams where I've written out inversions of chords, and they're all in the key of A. We're going to have to transpose them to put them in the key of C or wherever we need them, but that's not a big problem. I want you to look at diagram 1, for example. I've color-coded it so you can see the inversions. Now, if we have a chord that has 3 different notes in it, there'll be 3 inversions. It simply means we move each note in the chord up to the next note in the chord. So let's look at diagram 1, which is labeled sus2. In chart number 2, you see the formula for a sus2 is 1, 2, 5. And indeed, if we look at the top 3 strings, we have an A sus2. I'll play the 5th string open. You can hear a nice A sus2 right there. So if I want to see my inversions, I simply move each note on each string up to the next note in the chord. And that gives me 3 voicings, and then it starts over again an octave higher. And then you could do that on any string group. So we'll be using the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd strings a lot, the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. We'll stay primarily on top because this course is about slash chords. You're going to leave the bass line down the low register open, or you'll put that bass note in. So that's how you're going to read all the diagrams. One final note. You will see some ambiguity in the sense of it seems like one chord could have more than one name. This is very true, and it's one of the great things in music. It'll help you because if you learn how to organize that stuff, then every time you learn a chord voicing, you won't just learn it as one chord voicing. You'll be able to see it different ways. You'll also be able to see it chromatically over 12 different bass notes, and that's the big picture. Okay? So now let's get into the actual chords with each formula applied as a slash chord.